All great things were built by people no more capable than you or I. Actively learning and pushing yourself every single day, there is no problem I don't think any human being in the world can solve.
Kent Yoshimura is a co-founder of Neuro,
a competitive Muay Thai fighter, ultramarathon runner, and muralist.
This episode is about how someone operates at a high level across every domain, and the system underneath all of it.
Suffering is not a reason to quit. It's a reason to break through.
I think most people quit too early. Whatever you dive into is almost a stress test system into what makes you a comprehensive individual. All the different fields that I've entered into and tried to be somewhat good at, they've all built on each other to create me more comprehensively.
You said that fighting teaches you not just how to react, but how to respond.
If you're reacting to everything in life, you're gonna be absolutely paralyzed. If you don't cheat on training, training will never cheat on you. I think that idea of creativity or artistic thinking, everyone has it. It's just how is it built into the system? How do you apply it to everything else that you do in your life?
Hi guys, Kate here. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's conversation with Kent. If you've been enjoying Post Run High or are excited about today's conversation, please hit that subscribe button. Your support helps us continue bringing you inspiring conversations. Kent, for our viewers listening today, what is the reason you think it's important for them to stay? And what is it that you've spent your life figuring out that actually matters to them?
I think humans are such complex creatures that we all have the capability to do more than, just one thing. And for myself, I truly believe that in all the different fields that I've entered into and, tried to be somewhat good at, they've all built on each other to create me more comprehensively rather than what some might say is a lack of focus.
And in 2024, Neuro, your company, was the fastest growing brand on TikTok Shop. But long before that was a company, as you're saying, it seems like you were building something else entirely, which is a system for how to perform. So let's dive in. Tell us about your journey and what led you to building Neuro and kind of all the things that you just mentioned.
Okay. I mean, how far back should we go? Because, even when I was young, both my parents were working. So daycare for me was karate. And martial arts became such a big part of my life and my identity, frankly, because it was where, I had a father figure, but he wasn't really around because he was just so busy. Like I never really knew my dad until I was 13. So that martial arts environment became the place where I was able to find, I guess, that like some sort of masculinity that I could attach myself to. And in that process, I think developing all the ideologies of martial arts and embedding that into the way I approached school, the way I approached other sports that I did, the way I continued to pursue it, and then eventually got into neuroscience because I wanted to learn how cognitive performance matches up with physical performance. It laid the groundwork out for ultimately where I am now, which is, a business owner that's constantly thinking about system building, constantly thinking about processes. And, even prior to that, post-college, post-fighting career, because I didn't want to get punched in the face anymore, I went into the arts because it was something that I realized I could push myself more further mentally, and went to UCLA Film School, dropped out because I was shooting a documentary with my friend Najib that didn't get produced and financed because one of our executive producers passed away. So Stefan Skarbeck was a producer for Amy Winehouse, and there was a possibility that Amy Winehouse was going to come in and be an executive producer for our film, but she ended up passing away that same year. So it kind of took me down this entire different path of, okay, what's something I can control? And that was art, illustration, then eventually murals.
That's so interesting that you had both the creative background and the athletic background because, it's kind of like what you said at the beginning of the episode where sometimes people feel like certain things don't mix. But I love knowing that you had this deep interest in athletics and that expressed itself through martial arts. And, I know you also run ultramarathons and you do a lot of other things athletically too, but it started out with martial arts and then post-college it translated creatively. Did you always know you were a creative person?
I told my mom, I was like, I'm going to be an artist, Mom, like when I was 5 years old. And like any other Asian parent, she was like, no, the hell you are not. Like, you're definitely not becoming an artist. But it's something that, even when I was a young age, art wasn't necessarily the end goal. Like the idea of like doing art wasn't the end goal. It was really, I saw it as like the ultimate form of freedom, even as a child. Like when I was like drawing with crayons or I was putting collages together, it was this idea that I could create anything within the boundary, like within my own physical boundaries. And to me, that was really interesting. And eventually, that led me down a path of like, okay, how do I apply this to my martial arts, which obviously had the word art in it because there is physical creativity that you could do with it. How do I apply this to my thought process with how I even study, which is the reason I got into nootropics, doing my own research, taking things like vasopressin so I could enhance my short-term memory before tests so I can maximize my efficiency, to actually doing art in the form of murals and painting in big ways that, I could see a vision and I had to actualize it in some way.
I grew up in a very athletic household where sports were always the focus, but I relate to you in a big way because I also had a big like artistic background and I loved taking art classes. And that was a side of me that I didn't tap into till after college as well, because I kind of never knew like, where could this go?
Yeah.
So I like knowing and hearing you say that art can be expressed in so many different things, whether it be in studying neuroscience and how you actually study to how you perform athletically in a martial arts practice. I mean, I was always a big believer that having that kind of visual mindset and that artistic background allowed me to like see a field differently even.
Yeah. Do you think of yourself as like more of a visual learner?
Definitely.
Right? And I think like that visual learning translates a lot into even like with martial arts, you learn forms or you learn certain moves. You could almost place yourself because you're a visual learner into these situations. You could learn how to like more efficiently run because you could apply yourself to that. And I don't know. I think that idea of like creativity or artistic thinking, everyone has it. It's just how is it built into the system? How do you apply it to everything else that you do in your life?
Yeah, and I often find that some of the most successful founders are really creative and can tap into that side of themselves.
Yeah, I mean, think about Steve Jobs, one of the most famous entrepreneurs ever to exist. And he's a guy that dove deep into calligraphy, deep into design, and that dictated how he changed honestly, he changed like the idea of industrialization, how you take the industrialization of computers and personalize it to people. And now we're on it for like 5-6 hours a day. These are things that we use on a daily basis because we could almost like we feel comfortable using it because of the design, because of the art components of it.
You have a pretty athletic family, right? Your sister was Olympic level weight trainer.
Yeah, she's crazy. Olympic level weightlifting. She's like nationals level right now.
So what was going on in your household that like really pushed athletics? Was this just something that you guys liked challenging yourself to do?
It's so funny because like, my sister and I were watching old videos like a few months ago and we're just doing like somersaults and we're like jumping on the bed. And I think like my mom, because my dad was always away for work, my mom couldn't handle 2 kids like just running around. So she was like, you know what, just do your thing. We're running around, we're like both of our daycares was something athletic, like whether it was swimming for my sister or martial arts for me. And then eventually my sister got really into equestrian, but like it was a very expensive sport, so she had to get really good at it so that she could ride other people's horses so that she could, it's like she could pay for her own training. And then she got into CrossFit, which eventually led her down this path of Olympic weightlifting. And yeah, it's like my sister is like a freak athlete. It's unbelievable. And then for me, it was just always martial arts. I was like living in the studio, in the dojo, just all the time. Like that was like my safe haven.
So when you went to UC San Diego, you were balancing Muay Thai in Thailand.
Yes.
With a neuroscience degree.
Yes. And judo.
And judo. Okay, so paint the picture for us. What did that actually look like in college? Like how were you spending your time? Were you mainly in California or were you doing online classes?
Yeah. So I mean, I hinted at this a little bit with like the vasopressin thing, but there was a point where I knew I had to maximize my study time and my schooling. So that's really when I started getting into nootropics and what supplements I could take to enhance whether it's like short-term memory or efficiency in taking quizzes and tests. But Muay Thai, I would be training like about 4 to 6 hours every single day. I would be training in Thailand during the summers. So we would go out to Sit Yotong, down in Pattaya, and train out there. And we always have a fight for the king's birthday, which happens around August. And then I would go to Japan and stay at the Kyokushikan, which is the #1 judo university in Japan, and train there, train with the Imperial Guards, or train with the Japanese Olympic judo team at the Kodokan. And so it was a lot of traveling, but San Diego has an incredible judo team. Like the Olympic judo coach, Justin Flores, is actually down there still. And so it was almost like this space where and I wasn't even thinking about it in high school, It wasn't like, I'm going to San Diego because the judo is so good down there. It's like, I was very fortunate enough to find that opportunity that I could discover a really good community of martial artists, which allowed me to excel even further.
Yeah, and I can imagine that practicing those sports in those places, especially Muay Thai, I'm saying it wrong.
Muay Thai.
Muay Thai, guys, I can't. We talked about this. Muay Thai is a drink. Muay Thai is a sport. Hello? Okay. I could imagine that practicing Muay Thai in Thailand is a very intense and unique experience, right? So what does the training look like on a day-to-day?
I mean, it's intense, but it's almost like a reframing of how training is here. So the facilities definitely aren't as nice. There's more archaic ways that you're doing things, but you're doing road work in the morning. You wake up, you do road work in the morning.
What is road work?
Running. So you go run like a 5K or whatever in the morning, 5K to like 5 miles, whatever in the morning. And then you spend basically like, if you go to the gyms, it's so funny. And I could probably pull up some pictures later, but they just have these giant recycled tires all over the gym. And that's where you practice like your jumping and you're like, basically your like balance work. And then you like spar, you do pad work. Like the mats, you could tell are like incredibly gross, because like there's no way of like really cleaning them. And these are the places that produce champions. And all these people that, become champions are 5-year-old kids whose parents put them into Muay Thai because that was their only way of making an income. And these are the people that you're training against. So you could imagine that the level of people that, have to fight for their life are the ones that are also your training partners. And just it just like, one, makes you have an appreciation for life, but allows you to push yourself further, because it's like, how many more resources do we have than all these people? Like, you have to get better if I'm hanging with them.
Like, what is it like showing up as an American university student, right? You're in the US, it's very different than that type of environment that you're describing.
Gosh, yeah.
That's super gritty,
Yeah. I mean, well,
and how
Thai
did you compare?
Thai people are the nicest people in the world. And there's no level of like, I feel there's cynicism like embedded in American culture, unfortunately. But when you go to Thailand and you're coming there as someone who's willing to experience the culture and actually train alongside these people, they will accept you with open arms as long as you can hang out with them. And the way you can hang with them is not giving up, knowing that your place is like to get better, and having that same experience that everyone else is experiencing. So if you're trying to have a different experience than them, which is just like natural in any environment, they are it's like with anything, like don't be acting like the American tourist in their environment. Like, respect what they're doing and go in and like learn as much as possible, and then you take that and then you take it back to the United States.
Did you have to learn the language while you were there?
No, I know like 3 words.
Mm-hmm. What would you say you learned about yourself through being in that environment?
I mean, beyond the fact that, I'm incredibly grateful that I grew up in America, especially after seeing how these people live, and what they do every single day. It's, there's like a level of humility that you have to approach anything with. And when you see that there's a level of excellence that these people push for every single day, knowing that their life depends on it, and you are doing this almost as a hobby relative to how they're experiencing Muay Thai in their own world, I'm so privileged. I'm so privileged to be able to even experience this, pay for like, however much plane tickets were to fly out there, stay out there for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks at a time. And be able to go back and sleep in a nice bed once I'm back at home. It's like, it's incredible. And so I don't know, you have to just like enjoy all these experiences and allow them to just take it and elevate who you are.
What was the goal for you with training there? Like, did you want to be a professional fighter?
I did. But it's funny because I think sometime in my junior year, I realized that me wanting to be a professional fighter was me chasing my ego more than anything. And fighting has always, my original karate coach always taught me, if you don't cheat on training, like training will never cheat on you. And so I dove in headfirst and put myself into fighting, and it was always about like, how can I make myself better? How can I it was always about me within this environment. And I realized, especially being in Thailand, it was so eye-opening it was interesting training with a professional team, because you start understanding what team is in a sport that's so individualistic and how important that is. And at some point, something clicked in my brain where I realized that that's not really the path I wanted to go down. Like, I can push myself in a physical and mental way, but how do I apply that to doing something bigger by doing it with a greater group of people?
I really liked what you said to me yesterday on the phone. You said that fighting teaches you not just how to react, but how to respond. So I'm curious, from a business perspective, how does that mentality help?
Yeah. I don't know. There's so many things that fighting has taught me, and there's so many things that I feel like fighting has been detrimental because it's hard to break away from that competitive mindset, right? The competitive mindset. And I always think that athletes are some of the best people to work with, because they have that competitive mindset, as long as their ego doesn't get in the way. And for me, I had to break away from that ego. That ego dissolution was one of the biggest things that I think allowed me to elevate myself in art, allowed me to elevate myself in business, and everything else I do in my life. And when you are constantly in business, especially when you're starting a new business, and you probably know this even starting a podcast, you think everything is important. Like everything, you think every punch that's getting thrown at you is something that you need to react towards. And after a certain point, it's understanding what you need to respond to make the most impactful hit to change the course of an entire match. And if martial arts taught me anything, it's being able to understand, how do you flow? How do you find these moments that you could you're thoughtfully responding versus reacting to everything that's coming at you? And that applies to obviously everything in life, right? Like, if you're reacting to everything in life, you're going to be absolutely paralyzed.
When you're building a business, you really have to think big picture, because if, you're somebody that's focused on the font, you're never going to get through your day by thinking about like what actually matters,
Absolutely.
Anyways, he said it way more eloquently than me, but just made me think of that.
But it's
for
exactly
some
that.
reason. Yeah. When you say ego dissolution, can you break down what that means for us?
Yes. It's interesting because, again, when I thought about fighting, or when I thought about art, or whenever I think about business, like all these different things I dove into, there was it's like this main character energy, right? You go into the ring and believing that you are the main character and you're always going to win every single match, because that is what destiny set out for you to do, is a good ideology to have in many ways, because it builds your confidence. But that's not really the way the world works. And to be able to navigate the world almost as a passive observer sometimes allows you to become a lot more thoughtful in the way you approach everything, and a lot more responsible in the way that you can approach all the things that life throws at you. And I've seen so many people, especially in the fighting world, and some of them are still my good friends, but there's that saying of like peaking in high school, right? It's almost like peaking in high school is because that confidence and that ego was elevated to such a degree. Elevate, I guess, is like the word of this podcast. Like that, I keep saying, but you've almost like made yourself so stuck in your own ways that there's like a difficulty in being able to realize that the world is a lot bigger than this like ecosystem that you've built for yourself. And do you know who Miyamoto Musashi is?
No.
He wrote the Book of Five Rings. He's considered the greatest swordsman to ever live in Japan. And he's a hero for a lot of martial artists. But there was a point that he realized like the way of the sword was all about taking other people's lives. Like you can only become the best if you basically murder a bunch of people. And when he reached a point where he was like, wow, I don't necessarily want to be the best swordsman in the world. I want to be the best, like, human. I want to be a more complete human being. He basically quit everything that he did within the fighting world. He quit everything he did in swordsmanship. All he reached his best. He reached like the highest peak and broke away to become a philosopher. And he like locked himself up in this cave and just ended up writing how to live a better life for you and other people. And I want to believe that almost every martial artist, you know, when they go through this trials and tribulations, goes through that. Or not even a martial artist. As a human being, when you go through trials and tribulations and you get humbled, you will ultimately end up on the other side as a better human being.
And also like when you push yourself to those extremes, you know, it's like martial arts it's such an interesting sport to train at, such an interesting range of sports to train at, right? Because there's different types of, we're learning all about this, guys. There's different types of martial arts. There's Muay Thai, there's judo, there's jujitsu. Does jujitsu count in martial arts?
Totally,
yes.
totally,
Okay, thank God. All right. But it is so interesting because it is something that's been around for so long. And it is so cool just hearing that, you know, you can learn so much about just the principles of life through practicing such an extreme sport.
Oh, yeah. But how are you pushing yourself constantly too? You know, if you're getting comfortable because you became so good at one martial arts or one skill, then like, where's the growth? So
it's like, okay, time to try the next one.
Exactly. And how do you apply the learnings from the previous sport that you became so good at to the next thing?
I liked that you said that you like working with other athletes. And a question that I love asking people is, do you like hiring athletes and do you like hiring runners?
Yes. I mean, I don't specifically go out for runners, but I probably should, you know, especially like now that I am a much more serious runner. The athlete mentality to not give up, I think, is one of the most critical pieces in building any business also, or approaching anything in life. And when there is a challenge in front of, especially myself as an athlete, I am always looking at that challenge and be like, ooh, I could take that on. And I'm sure you feel exactly the same way. And it's like, you know, I was listening to your husband Jeremy's mom's podcast episode.
Let's go. Shout out Dana, Dr. Dana.
And
she deserves her own podcast.
She really does. Like, she's incredible. Like, and I love that episode that you did with her. But
she could be the next Mel Robbins. Come on now.
There was something she said that really resonated with me. It's like, everyone eventually does hit a wall when you are pushing yourself in a long run. But it's I think she used MVP as the acronym, you know. What is, you know, mindfulness and then visualization. Yeah. And then P was like performance or something like that. But mindfulness, being able to forget everything else, being able to forget that you are competing, but it is just you in this moment having to just exist and find the rhythm of the run, I think it was like so beautifully said. And when you are challenged with things that you do not know how to tackle because it's something new to you, you just have to go back to your core, who you are, and just challenge it head on and just trust the rhythm of your feet to take you through it.
And I mean, ultra runners like yourself and marathon runners, it's like the art of the act of actually running is one thing, but it really does teach you so much about discipline and pushing yourself through something, even when it's hard, even when you feel like you have to stop. And just the skills that you can learn through being a long distance runner or being an ultra marathoner or being a martial artist, whatever sport it is that you're taking to that next level or just really doing, setting a goal for yourself and accomplishing it, it can be applied in so many ways to your professional life. What do you feel like running, ultra running, marathons, running in general, how do you feel like it's helped you in your professional life?
Yeah. Man, I have so many answers because like running is such a big part of my life now.
How big? How much are you running?
I mean, so in peak training, I'm running usually 10 miles a day. And then when I was training for my ultra, I was running like a marathon every weekend. So, but you know, it wasn't even like it's interesting because when you get into a training mode for long distance running, which eventually I want to do once I have a little bit more time, just running takes up so much time. And my wife's pregnant, so I can't just be gone for like 4 hours every weekend. But I don't run with headphones on. It is my time to be able to consolidate all my thoughts, which is very important in a day and age where there's distractions getting thrown at you from every single angle. And there is a physical rhythm within the veil of pain. Like, there's this veil of pain that obviously you deal with when you're running long distances. But underneath it all, there's this rhythm that you start discovering in how you should process everything. And running has allowed me to almost find that thought process in how I approach everything else in my life. And it's funny because even with my mural partners that I paint with, the guy I ran my ultramarathon with is my mural painting partner that I've been painting murals with for the last 12 years. And both of us have discovered that, and he's a full-time artist, our best thoughts can only come in these moments where you're by yourself, and not just thinking it. It's this like active meditation where, your body's moving, your mind is moving, and all those things are getting pieced together, and all that exists is you.
What's the craziest idea you've come up with while running that you guys have actually implemented for Neuro?
Oh my gosh, there's so many.
He's like texting Ryan, like, just came up with an idea, Ryan's like, you're running right now.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's definitely those moments where like I would come back on like a Monday and like be talking to the team about all these like random things, and they'd be like, okay, like maybe I should have consolidated my thoughts a little more. So this isn't business, but there was like a period when, I was debating. This is gonna get personal, but it's like, I don't know if I ever really wanted to get married, like especially like early on in my life. But there was a moment when I was running my Yosemite ultramarathon, which was like 7,200 feet elevation gain, 38 miles, and around like mile 32, like near the end of my run, I hit this crazy runner's high where I actually like couldn't stop crying. I was like running up this hill and I couldn't stop crying, and it was. There was never a moment where my mind was so clear that I wanted to marry my wife. And a few months later, I proposed to her. And I feel like that was one of the most important moments of my life. Wow. So during that run was the moment that I was able to consolidate all my feelings and thoughts and be able to put aside this, again, idea of ego and having to work through the business and having to work so hard, and think back to what was truly important in my life, which was, having a person by my side that challenges me every single day, but is also my rock.
She's like, keep running, babe. This is great for our relationship.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to clip that and send it to her. Yeah.
What's your wife's
I
name?
Always have that. Michelle.
Shout out, Michelle.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
I'm going to have that just in case we get into a fight. And so I can always pull it up.
Just in case you're ever mad at me for running long distance, just know it's great for our relationship.
Exactly.
Yesterday when we were talking on the phone briefing for this podcast, you said suffering is not a reason to quit. It's a reason to break through. Yeah. Can you explain that to us? And was there a specific moment in your life that taught you that?
I want to say there are so many moments, like what is life? I don't mean this in a negative way. Like, what is life without suffering though? Like it is. That's
the competitor in you.
It is. And it's like, there's, again, going back to the physical and mental, there's like the physical suffering and definitely the mental suffering. I mean, I'll talk about my co-founder later on in this podcast, because he's definitely gone through both the physical and mental suffering. And, he inspires me every single day with how resilient he is. But when we were, after college, when I was trying to find my identity after fighting, I went to film, and then I thought I found my identity there until my film project completely fell through. And when I started getting into something that I could do a lot more independently, which was my own art career, the way I was able to support myself was doing hospital stays and doing clinical trials. So I would make money staying at a hospital in Anaheim doing Anaheim clinical trials and making money that way. So I didn't have to pay for rent. I could take these experiential drugs and then I could work on my own business. And I remember at that point, especially graduating from, I would say like a decent college, all my friends were working in tech. They were enjoying their life. They were making money. And I felt like I was just living this incredibly scrappy life, trying to live a life I wanted to live. And when I compare myself, it's interesting because it was at that moment that I was comparing myself to others, and where that competitive nature of an athlete was more detrimental to myself versus being able to focus on the bigger picture. Why am I going through these processes to achieve something that I know will pay off, which is the same with training. Like, why are you training and suffering in that moment? And it is because there's going to be a payoff at the end. And very fortunately, they say, like Neuro is a 10-year overnight success in many ways. But that suffering and believing in the process, believing in the team, believing in the people that are supporting you, and building what you believe is making sense and bringing a contribution in some way to the world, allowed me to keep going and eventually break through and get to a point where we do have a certain level of accolades and a revenue number that's, I guess, pretty decent. But the journey's not over. Like, the suffering, it's less suffering now, but I think there's so much more to go. And maybe that's, maybe we're in the ultramarathon phase of the business now.
Do you think some people quit too early?
Absolutely. I think most people quit too early. If there's so much, if you are actively learning and pushing yourself every single day, there is no problem I don't think any human being in the world can't solve. We were talking about Steve Jobs earlier. There's a great book, In My Own Words, by Steve Jobs, and in the foreword that's written by his wife. There's a section that says, you have to believe all great, I'm misquoting it, but the crux of it is, all great things were built by people no more capable than you or I. And she's referring to, obviously, Steve Jobs, who invented the entire personal computer world, personalized computer world. But all of us are capable of doing anything. It's just how far we want to push ourselves and how much we believe ourselves to be able to do it.
And I feel like you have to learn how to differentiate between pain that grows you versus breaks you.
Yes. I love that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you ever have pain that felt like it was going to break you when you were doing your hospital stays? Did you have any crazy reactions to anything?
No, not in a physical way, but I will say in a mental way. Even art is not a very lucrative career, and I love my parents, but there was a certain level of pressure that they were definitely putting on me to go find a real job to a certain degree. My parents believed that if I kept pushing myself, I would achieve something. But I think it was more about me. And I think this is a fault that humans just have in general. How do you feel when you compare yourself to other people versus how do you feel when you compare yourself against yourself and what you feel like you could achieve? And when I was finally able to break away from, going out and everyone's ordering cocktails and having a great time and they're going on these trips because they all have great tech jobs. And, I'm here, usually I would just drink water because I won't be able to afford a drink. I appreciate my friends for, understanding my situation. And I wouldn't make it a big deal by any means in that moment. But understanding my situation, understanding that, this push that I was doing was for something that I truly believed in. And it's really funny because when you are truly passionate about something and you are truly trying to push through, and this goes for anyone, people will rally behind you. If you have a belief in something, no matter what that belief, if you have a belief in something, no matter what situation or what position you may be in, people will stand behind you and push for that belief. And that was probably one of like the most valuable things that I've learned in setting a vision, being able to push a team, making decisions, and striving for something.
And at that time, had you started the idea for Neuro, or was your belief at the time like, I'm going to make it as an artist?
It was both. So, just to backtrack on my career, there was my early art days, and then Neuro started actually like right when I started painting murals. So I was probably painting murals for about a year, and then we launched Rogan because I realized that I wanted to start a business that would actually be producing capital in some way, or something that was actually backed monetarily. And then I started another company called Okie Dokie, which was an experiential design agency where we started building toy stores in New York. So I shifted away from my personal art stuff into large-scale projects, whether it was public art pieces with my murals or building toy stores. Like there's a toy store called Camp. So we built in New York, and then the Wonder. We built the very first iteration of that. We built a Britney Spears experiential project, her experiential museum. We did the entire experiential design for the Fear of God six collection. We
That's so cool.
Yeah, we actually ended up doing like a lot of projects, but then COVID completely killed that business. But
and you were doing hospital stays all while during this, or did you start making money from these?
So thankfully, I started making money from both Neurogum.
Because I was going to say, experiential marketing, I feel like there's even more money in it now.
Yeah, absolutely. But like it was, those days when I was staying in the hospital and doing, making money that way, was able to build a foundation to do all these other things.
Yeah, you got to get scrappy. Come on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I told people like I've never had a W-2 until Neurogum.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
that's wild.
I have always just pushed myself to and again, it was not that I couldn't get a job, with the hospital stays. It was that allowed me to have the freedom to be able to pursue all the things that I wanted to pursue. And I was willing to take that, I guess, moment of suffering to be able to do that.
Let's talk about Neurogum. What products were you trying out at the time that led you guys into developing the first iteration of what Neuro and Neurogum was?
Yeah. So in college, while I was fighting, the only things that existed were energy drinks or, very, very badly substantiated supplements, especially during that era. And I got really deep into nootropics because I was reading Tim Ferriss's 5-Hour Workweek book, which was very popular at that time. And he was talking about taking modafinil, and it's like, oh, human beings don't need to sleep. You can do like the Superman cycle or the Uberman cycle, and
truly the Wild West of supplements.
It was, oh my god, it was crazy. And I was doing that for a while. Like I was doing the 20-minute naps throughout the day. So I was doing 20 minutes every 4 hours, and then I would do like a big 2-hour sleep session. So I would only be sleeping about 4 hours a day, throughout the day. So I did that for I want to say 8 months or 8 or 9 months. Not a full year, but I did it for a majority of a year. And obviously don't do that. I am so against not getting good sleep now. But during that time, I was constantly thinking about how do I maximize every single waking hour in my life. And the things I began mixing was the racetams, so piracetam, oxiracetam, and racetam that I would buy from Russian websites using Bitcoin. This is I wish I just kept that Bitcoin, but I was spending Bitcoin. This is about 15 years ago. Caffeine L-theanine, which eventually ended up becoming V0 of our product. Modafinil, I would be taking modafinil all the time, which is an anti-narcolepsy drug, so it'll allow you to stay awake and be more productive. I was playing with different dosages of caffeine, playing with different dosages of even I didn't get too crazy into the Adderall dosaging, but there was definitely a little bit of playing with that. And eventually, just when it came down to it, I realized the tried and true methods of having good sleep, getting a good dose of caffeine was the most effective way of maintaining a very healthy but sustainable work ethic. And when I met my co-founder Ryan in college, he was actually a runner, so he was captain of his cross country and track team.
We got to get Ryan on the show.
Yeah, we got to get Ryan on the show. He was one of the fastest kids in California. He was running a 4:20 mile or something. Absolutely insane. But then his sophomore year, he got in a snowboarding accident that left him paralyzed from the waist down. And these supplements that I was taking were the ones I was giving him so that he could get back into school and finish on time, which is absolutely crazy to do after being in a grievous injury, like being paralyzed from the waist down. And then after college on a scuba diving trip, which is one of the most accessible things that you could do, we were exhausted and realizing that one, neither of us want to drink coffee. Like for him, drinking coffee is a little bit difficult because of, his injury and like his stomach, and realizing there has to be a more efficient, approachable, accessible way of taking things. And that was gum and mints, putting something that we could share with each other, putting something that we could share on these like adventures that we were taking. And that led us into starting NeuroGum.
I think what's so cool too is, and I said this too on the run, but it's two completely different lived experiences, right? Obviously two friends coming together with this aligned mission, but his, need for the product is different than what yours was, but similar at the same time. So I'm curious, like, what did Ryan's experience with the products and kind of what they were being used for from his perspective, how did that kind of teach you? I guess I'm not really phrasing that right, but like, what did that teach you about when you guys were starting Neuro?
I think for Ryan, it was to live. For me, it was to optimize. For Ryan, it was to live, which is a totally different approach in how you have to, look at life. Like if NeuroGum, NeuroMints, all the supplements I was mixing and taking was to better my own life, Ryan took it in a way where I have this injury. How am I going to get back to at least equilibrium to live my life again? And that's exactly what he does now, and the fact that when you meet Ryan, it's amazing because like you've met Ryan before, like you do not need to stop him. Like physically, like nothing stops him. Like he will go down an escalator. He will, wheelie down like a set of stairs. If he needs to go up a set of stairs, I'll just piggyback ride him and then we'll just take the wheelchair up. Like there is, in all the places I've traveled with him, he is more mobile than any other human being with the use of two legs. And the experimentation with NeuroGum, the fact that we started a business together, the fact that I feel like for both of us, believing in something created more meaning in our lives than anything, like more than anything. Like I feel like business and NeuroGum has created meaning in both of our lives. That has allowed us to really, for me, optimize my life, but for Ryan, keep pushing himself in ways that I don't think he would have been. He would have found a way, like knowing Ryan, but I think it's definitely helped him find like a reason to be beyond his injury.
Absolutely. It's like everybody needs purpose. And especially when you're going through such a traumatic life event that requires you to be resilient in a way you never thought you could.
Yeah, absolutely. And resiliency is the name of the game when it comes to anything in life, especially for him getting past his injury, especially in business, this idea of the react versus respond. Like sometimes you do have to react because things are getting thrown at you from a million different directions, but you keep going, you stay resilient.
What do you feel like his experience taught you?
I was saying that nothing stops Ryan. And when you think about cognitive performance, which is exactly the reason I got into neuroscience in the first place, physical performance, especially when you're young and you're in your youth, you don't even think about the brain. You just kind of go because your body could keep up with everything that you're thinking about. When I saw Ryan and saw him go through his injury, it was the definition of what I was, and it was the archetype of what I was chasing, which was cognitive performance at its best. When you put your mind to something and when you realize that your physical capabilities are stunted, then anything is possible. And that's, in many ways, with NeuroGum or business or anything I do, it's subconsciously been built in the back of my mind.
Right. And so I know that we talked about the accessibility with gum, right? You can kind of, I saw you guys on Shark Tank talking about it. Like you can put a pack of gum in your pocket, mints, it's very accessible, it's shareable, it's social. But I'm curious, is there like a scientific even backing to like does chewing gum or having a mint in your mouth, does it absorb quicker?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And like that's one of those things that we found out later, but I guess I should have known like when we were starting off, but we weren't even thinking about it.
Yeah, that's like a lucky surprise. That
Exactly.
You find out. You're like, oh, okay.
It's like, oh, that's nice. Like we're better than even drinking energy drinks and like coffee and all these things.
Yeah.
The buccal and sublingual absorption component of it, like knowing from basically just administration methods in general from a clinical studies perspective, absorbs a lot faster. Like you absorb things faster through the glands and the glands in your mouth or the glands in your tongue versus having to digest it. Like you process it in your stomach, then the bile has to break it down. And yeah, that was just like a great surprise. And also there's all these studies that talk about just the act of chewing gum activates your brain because of that motion. So when you combine all those things together, the effective ingredients, the act of chewing activating your brain, and then the buccal and sublingual absorption component, it's like a trifecta of creating a product that is efficiently working, more so than traditional formats.
Okay, let's pull up the product because we have it on the side
there
here.
You go.
So show us this product. What is this one that we just had?
So this is the Neuro mints. It is natural caffeine, 40 milligrams of natural caffeine, L-theanine, and B vitamins in a mint format. Do you want one?
I do want another one. They're so good, guys.
Yeah.
Like the thing about me is when I have a pack of mints, I eat all of them. How many of these can you have a day?
So the great thing about this is one piece is half a cup of coffee, and there's no reason that your adenosine receptors, like when you're taking something like a Celsius that has 300 milligrams of caffeine, or even like a venti is I think the largest, right, at Starbucks, that's like 360 milligrams of caffeine. And every single year, Starbucks has increased the amount of caffeine in their products because they know there is a dopaminergic reaction to how people want more energy, more caffeine. That is not how the human body should be operating. You can microdose effectively, and you could control the dosage of the caffeine that you take so that you could efficiently not have the crash and keep going with your life. Like you do not need to burn yourself out. And that is the philosophy that we live by. That is the philosophy like you as a runner also, like with the running marathons. You're not supposed to burn yourself out and like start sprinting at the starting line. You're supposed to consistently be going through life, and thoughtfully going through life. And that's the reason we put in as much as we did. And there's so many other companies that that have tried to do something similar to what we've done, but they always approach it in the sense of an energy drink. It's like trying to overload people so they get an instant hit instead of, hey, if we are supposed to thoughtfully live our lives and be resilient and all these things we're talking about, like to be able to continue in a sustainable way because life is a marathon, then how can you be more thoughtful with your dosing and be more thoughtful with the things you put into your body? And so that was a long way of saying, yes, you could take a whole tin of this and it's still less caffeine than...
They're awesome and they taste so good, and they're now going to become a part of my everyday ritual, and they have become a part of so many people's everyday rituals. I saw this stat that 1 in 7 people knows about Neuro.
Yeah, probably more like 1 in 6 now, but it's...
1 in 6 people. I mean, that
crazy.
is wild.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, we sell more than 5 Hour Energy in revenue and velocity at CVS now. So we are taking over what... I think people are more conscious of what they're taking now, with these energy drinks. And like gone are the days where, thankfully, gone are the days where you're just like, they used to release energy drinks called cocaine energy drink,
That's crazy.
It was like crazy.
But I do 5 Hour Energy. I remember every CVS you would go into would be like whatever they call the little like when you're kind of checking out, it's right there.
At the cash register at the checkout lane. Yeah.
What I think too is so cool is I feel like we're almost living in this efficiency world now where whatever it is, people just want the most efficient option. It's like that we want efficient options for our groceries delivered right to our door. We want an efficient workout class. If it's 25 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever we have time for, we want to make sure we're getting a great sweat in. I also feel like when it comes to the products that we're using, like we want them to be efficient, and gum previously has done literally nothing for us.
Literally
right?
nothing.
Other than like hurting our teeth.
Yeah.
So I feel like what's cool about this product is you at least are getting benefits out of it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And like, why would you even chew regular gum at this point?
That's what I'm saying.
We were looking at consumption data from our retailers, and what's funny is people are thinking. It's great that people are thinking that way, where there's definitely an overlap between people that are drinking coffee or energy drinks and then also chewing gum. And we are now, I think, within the top 10 of even traditional gum and mints in general, like the Extra, the Orbits, the Altoids. We are selling more in terms of dollars per distribution point and velocity than like the bottom 6 of that top 10. So we're onto something.
You're taking over multiple industries. It's so impressive. I liked that you said it was a 10-year business that has become an overnight success. What in the past 10 years was the biggest turning point for you guys?
In 2020, we went on Shark Tank. And so that was, well, let's go back. Because 10 years ago, when we first launched, we were in our nootropics, and we were targeting a very small group of consumers that were into this thing called nootropics, which I bet it's less than 1 in 7 people in America that even know what that term is.
Yeah, what is that?
It is basically substances that allow you to have cognitive benefits with minimal or no side effects. So this idea of like Adderall is not necessarily a nootropic because it is basically meth. There's a lot of side effects to it. But the combination of natural caffeine and L-theanine is considered a base nootropic stack because the L-theanine curbs a lot of the side effects of caffeine. So instead of getting like that high peak, it promotes more of the relaxation, the alpha waves to be able to equalize the side effects of caffeine. So that was the initial group of people that we were able to tap into. And right when we launched, Dr. Oz and his team actually called us. So we went on like Dr. Oz's show, whatever you think about him as a actual doctor or not. That put us on the national stage in front of a specific consumer group. But it wasn't until Shark Tank that in 2020 that we were able to hit a much larger audience. And then Joe Rogan talked about us almost at that exact same time. And now all of a sudden there was like this national exposure happening with this product where we were creating a new category. So to be able to tell people like, oh, we're a gum, but we're also a supplement. We're like an energy product, but we're also a gum. Categorically, to have to educate people was one of our hardest things. And those big PR bumps, whether it's with Joe Rogan or whether it's with Shark Tank, allowed us to, what they say, cross the chasm into a larger national audience. And then in 2023, we started experimenting with TikTok, where Jonathan Ha, our VP of growth, and I were committed to posting something every single day to figure out what virality is on TikTok and what causes virality on TikTok. And when we got our first video, which was a video of me reacting to Joe Rogan talking about our product, go viral, we set in motion this like hook to conversion process that we continue to replicate and then continue to turn into an entire creator community / ecosystem, which is now 25,000 people after 3 years, to really continue elevating our business and creating almost like a impressions vehicle. Like, how do you continue to, if people, you could have, you could be doing the most extraordinary thing, but if people don't know about it, then what's the point, right? So how do you create that engine?
How did Joe Rogan talking about your product compare to you guys being on Shark Tank?
Oh my gosh, Joe Rogan is basically male Oprah. So it was like Shark Tank was one level, but Joe Rogan just, it was a level of credibility that elevated us to a whole nother level. Yeah. And then we went back on Shark Tank 2 weeks ago, So we're the first company in Shark Tank history that didn't get a deal the first time that went back on Shark Tank and got a deal the second time.
Wait, you said you went back 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Did it air?
And it just aired 2 weeks ago.
Okay, 'cause
Like it was from like we
Yes.
shot it last year, but
Right.
yeah.
Okay, got it. Because I saw actually, we might have Damon on tomorrow for the
Oh, really?
For the walking portion of the show. Yes.
Oh, that's great.
But that's it. So we had Jamie Siminoff on, who's the founder of Ring.
Oh, okay.
And he
Yeah.
also went on Shark Tank and came out the first time with no deal. And then he eventually went back on and was like
As a
guest,
shark.
as a guest shark. And it was fun talking to him about his experience on the show, because while he walked away without a deal, he still got so much national recognition and then saw such like a spike in sales. So it was great exposure for the brand.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because both him and you were kind of, and at both Ring and Neuro were kind of misses in the world of the sharks.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, like they should have taken the deal.
But like,
How does that feel?
I mean, it feels great for me. You know, it feels awesome.
But you guys
Like,
left a good impression. Like they liked you on the show.
Well, they liked us, exactly. And like, you know, at the end of the day, it was when we think about why we didn't get a deal or take any of those deals. One, Kevin O'Leary's deal was absolutely garbage, and Robert Herjavec was devaluing our business. And for Ryan and I, it was always going into the show, we are going to stand our ground. We are going to truly believe what we feel is our valuation, and we either get that or we're not going to take a deal. And so we approached it with honesty at the end of the day, you know, and we approached it with like a sense of with no like we were not disingenuous by any means, and I think the Sharks like that. And then eventually through a process of a lawsuit and reaching back out to Daniel Lubetzky and this whole situation, we became incredibly close with him, and we were able to secure a deal with Daniel Lubetzky, who's the founder of Kind Bar, who's the best shark we could have gotten.
All right. So 6 years later, you guys go back on the show, 2020 to 2026. How did the deal terms change?
Oh my gosh. So I think when we went in, our valuation was around something like 10 to 15 million. Like Robert Herjavec was trying to work us down to like 7.5. We wanted to meet at 10, but we went in at a $15 million valuation. Multiply that by over 10x the second time around. Like way more than 10x, whatever the math is. So yeah, we got a good deal.
Were they excited to see you back?
Oh my God, they were so excited. And it was one of those things where it was cool because we got to bring in our partners too. So Daniel Lubetzky met us at a paddle club in Austin because Andrew Schultz, we just signed, is a huge paddle player.
I love Andrew Schultz. Yes,
he should come on the show.
He's a
great guy.
huge paddle and padel, right?
Oh, padel, like whatever you call it.
I used to see him at the Dumbo the padel and Dumbo.
Oh, yeah. He's an investor in that one.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. Okay. I saw him in there once and I had to go up and say hi. I was like, I love you.
Oh my gosh, you should have him on the show. He's awesome.
Yes.
So it was him and Mitchell Hooper, who's the world's strongest man. He just won the...
You get us Andrew Schultz on this show and we will pop a mint every 5 minutes.
Yes, let's go.
We'll see how caffeinated
We'll let him know.
get.
Yeah. I'll ping him afterwards. And then
so
we had
funny.
Yuki Tsunoda, F1 race car driver, and then
Yeah.
Daniel came in to just play like paddle with us. And that's when we closed our deal.
Who's better at padel, Andrew or you?
Oh, well, Andrew's a professional padel player, according to him. So I guess I have to give him the benefit of the doubt and say he's better.
Okay, you referenced this before, but in 2024, Neuro became one of the fastest growing brands on TikTok Shop. What do you think you guys as a company recognized worked on TikTok that maybe other brands didn't?
Incentivizing creators effectively. And it's funny because I see all these other companies trying to reach out to creators and be like, hey, I'll give you free product if you talk about us. What is the incentive there for like any person to talk about anything? You know, what is the incentive for any person to work towards anything? And being able to it probably comes from the athlete mentality, you know, like how do you push yourself and how do you encourage others to push themselves? We built that in to the way we interacted with our creators, whether it was through monetary value, whether it was through the community that we were building amongst creators. We have like creator houses where our creators get together and they could talk, whether it's the Discord channel that we built where everyone could share their thoughts and ideas and like we pop in and we provide them with content. All these different incentivization structures kept the creators excited and kept them pushing themselves to be creating new content every single day. And the fact that they would talk to each other on what works and what doesn't also allowed them to have this almost like efficient community, self-contained efficient community within themselves to be able to develop what ideas work and what didn't.
Yeah, like literally what hooks work, right?
Yeah.
It's so funny because TikTok Shop, I feel like, I mean, I'm on a different side of TikTok because it's like I'm just creating content, putting out there and hoping that the videos do well. Obviously, we have a format that we follow, but everybody knows that they scroll on their For You page and every other video is like a TikTok Shop video. So I feel like people are fascinated by it. How much can an affiliate make if they have a video go off?
I mean, we've paid out over $250,000 a month to one of our top affiliates.
To just one person.
To just one person. But he also made us like millions of dollars, in that month. So it was like a payout for that video.
And then I liked that you used this as an example before, but once Joe Rogan talked about the product, then you guys were almost stitching what he said and creating content around it. So is that kind of a hook that did well, and then maybe other creators now use that hook too?
Yeah, I mean, yes, that was definitely worked. But at the core of it, it was, what is the credibility that you could build in a product that is a category builder? Like no one knows about, again, like what and gum with supplementation is. So how do you build credibility, whether it's through a celebrity like a Joe Rogan, whether it's through research papers, whether it's through like a doctor talking about it, and how do you layer that into all the attributes of the product that eventually lead to a conversion?
Yeah, I feel like there's just so much that goes into distribution and marketing on these platforms. It's so cool. It's just so cool knowing that you guys leaned into TikTok Shop, because I feel like sometimes brands are slow to jump on the new things that you hear about trending, but you guys jumped on it pretty quickly. I
mean, I think one of the things that would be great for you guys is doing lives. So even like recording these podcasts, but doing it in a live format, people will hop in, and if people even tap into your live, you are going to be refeeding them your basically your page on their For You page, and it continues to build on itself. And a lot of people, when lives became very not profitable, there was like a period of like 6 months where it wasn't very profitable. We kept doing them because we knew that there was like a targeting funnel that we could
I saw
dive
you
into.
guys were live last night when I went to your TikTok
Oh yeah,
page.
we're live all the time.
Yeah. No, it makes so much sense. So I'm curious, back in the day, I've lived many lives, I feel like, on social media, but I had tried to start a brand, an activewear brand. And then I started the running interview show, and I just kind of had to weigh the pros and cons. And I realized that the running interview show was going to be more profitable through just working with brands. But I'm curious, for people that want to start a brand, what would be your biggest distribution tip? Like, how do they get their brand out there? What do you think are the keys to success that they have to be thinking about?
So I think personal brand is very, very powerful nowadays, because so many people are disillusioned by these big companies that are trying to feed them something, that are trying to follow the trends. But the slow, almost boring things like building your brand, building the process, having people learn who you are, and going through that almost like interview process with your consumer allows you to have an identity that differentiates yourself from anything else. So are you developing yourself personally, and how are you applying it to a brand that talks to a consumer that is just like you? And a lot of people like Comfort Clothes, I think they're called, on TikTok, they're doing like $10 million a month or something, right? And that started because people were able to associate themselves effectively with the founders. There's Gymshark is like another example where like he tapped into this very specific type of gym creator ecosystem and was able to create an identity that was really built from who he was as an individual. So in short, it's to say, how are you creating an identity that fits into an ecosystem that you could play into, and then continue reiterating it against the flywheel that you do create, so that exposure against a specific audience compounds on itself. And that's how I would create a brand.
Right. It's like, don't try to be so many things. Try to be something to a specific group of people and expand from there.
Yeah. And then once you master that, you could become the multi-hyphenate, right? You could start developing yourself into different fields.
I feel like we got to get your mural art somehow into the branding for Neuro.
Oh my God. Well, we do. So we have these like custom edition tins. And so last year we were the largest donor to Patty Aware, the ocean conservation group for the scuba diving organization, Patty. And we painted like a 2,200 square foot wall in San Diego. So that design ended up going on one of our tins that ended up raising money. And, we ended up raising like high six figures or something.
Okay, that's so cool.
There's some interplay there.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I feel like you got to weave it in a little bit because your mural art, like, it's incredible, guys.
Oh, thanks.
You'll go to his Instagram and it's so impressive.
Thanks.
I mean, it's seriously so how do you balance it? Do you get gigs still for mural art, or do you kind of do them for fun now?
So I mean, I have two, like, I work with like these two managers that typically tend to get me gigs, and I would only do them if it really makes sense. Like, murals take so much out of me.
They take so much time.
They take so much time. Like, it's hard for me. Like, usually I'm on the wall, like taking phone calls and talking to the team. And as Neuro grows, it just becomes more and more difficult. But, I'm going out to Ghana in like a few months again to paint a mural out in one of the villages that we're building with Mr. Beast. So, if it applies to something that I feel passionate about, or if it applies to something that's about giving back, then that's probably where I'm going to start exploring doing more and more murals again. But right now it's I would only paint murals if it's in a public space that I would love to activate, or two, if it's, monetarily it makes sense.
Okay, I love knowing that you guys are doing stuff with Mr. Beast. Is Mr. Beast an investor in Neuro?
He's not an investor, but Beast Philanthropy is like gonna be a shareholder. So we are, we look at philanthropy as a big part of our business. So whether it's giving back to, again, Patty Aware being the biggest donor for ocean conservation through that, Team RWB, which is the largest mental health charity for veterans in the United States. It's when we were out in Ghana and we saw what Beast Philanthropy does, like, because I was, thinking of Jimmy, how he presents himself on YouTube. I didn't truly believe that he was approaching charity in as comprehensive of a way as we were expecting it to be. But like, his mission with Feastables to end child labor out there in like the cocoa farms, him building these educational centers and villages out in Ghana so that people like actually create a system to get out of poverty, to get out of this child labor loop that's happening. And then Craig Kielberger, who he works with, who's the CEO of his Beast Philanthropy group, and what he's able to do, like his background, really made us believe in the mission, and whatever it is that we could contribute back to what they're doing and what we truly believe in, it just made sense.
Yeah, not a bad person to get involved with. He's
doing
some cool stuff. Like, I mean, it's
he's
fun.
A cool guy.
Yeah, really cool guy. We love our North Carolina people. Come on now.
Yes, exactly.
Obviously, Jeremy loves the North Carolina creators. Yeah, they're great. Also, it's been one of our goals since we started the show, but just to get to Greenville and see the crazy production that they've built.
Oh my God,
there.
yeah, you guys should come out. Like, I think I'm gonna go out in a few months. I'll let you guys know.
Okay, let us know. Maybe we'll bring our baby.
That's right.
Poor baby. No, that'd be funny. But Greenville's a crazy place because Jeremy always describes it as like, what the hell is going on in Greenville? It's like basically now like Jimmy's world, because it's like the middle of nowhere in North Carolina, right, Jer?
Middle of nowhere.
Kind of. That's what he would describe it
What
as. What have you learned from working with somebody like Mr. Beast, Jimmy? Like, what have you learned about business?
I mean, that man does not stop, but he also surrounds himself with people that work at the same speed that he does. And obviously, like, it leads to like toxic workplace allegations. But I think, I don't know if this is an HR friendly answer, but when you are operating at that high a level and that high a speed, if you can't keep up, like, that culture is not for you. And I think it's more that than anything else. Because every single person there, we were waking up at 5:30 a.m. and the film crew was already up for like 2 hours at that point to go 3 hours into this village, film all day. They get back at like 9 p.m. and then they start their day all over again. And Jimmy would be the person driving that. He would stay out there in an excavator and sleep overnight so that he could wake up first thing in the morning and start filming. Like, that is how devoted he is, and he does that 365 days out of the year.
It's such a good example for your team.
It's such a good example. And if you work at that speed, people are going to work at that speed. And same with Neuro. Like for Ryan and I, we talked about like the mental resilience and everything, like how much you're pushing yourself. You can obviously set an example that translates to everyone else and the way they should operate in the team. But with that, you need to be as decisive. Like Jimmy is very decisive in everything he does. And that's probably one thing I learned where we were talking on the run. It's like when you make a decision, the universe conspires to make that decision come true. And as a leader, I think that's the most important attribute that you have to have, that assertiveness, making a decision, but gathering the right evidence to make a decision that makes sense so that everyone could back you in that.
What's an example that you witnessed in Ghana of Jimmy making a quick decision?
I mean, so one of the days, so Ghana has these crazy rainstorms that happen out of nowhere. And even the situation of Jimmy sleeping in the excavator is one of those moments where he's like, we're all staying out here tonight because it rained and we lost 3 hours of filming. How are we going to start filming early tomorrow? His entire team's like, all right, like, fine, we're staying out here so we don't have to drive back to the hotel and back. None of us are going to shower and we're going to get straight back into it. And mind you, not showering in Ghana when it is like 70% humidity and 90 degrees every single day is absolutely nuts. But his entire team backs him in that decision. And I went back to the hotel, because
I can't.
But when we came back the next day, like they were all back at it. And 10 Neuro gums in, everyone's like chewing Neuro gum out there. But like they were all back at it filming because they knew that they have a short time span to be able to do anything until they had to jump onto their next project. And it's like, I don't know, like I used to work at that speed when we were working in like the experiential marketing agency and like we were building that and building toy stores and like you had to move at a certain pace to hit deadlines. But the fact that he's doing that and everything, I would say the only con of working in that way is everything bottlenecks into Jimmy. Because if Jimmy slows down, the entire team slows down. Or if Jimmy can't work one day because he's sick or something, the entire team has that day off also. And so with Jeff, their new CEO, I think a lot of what they're doing, and it's a big lesson for myself as well. How do you build the systems? How do you build the processes so things can keep running beyond who you are, beyond the individual? And, going back to this idea of like ego dissolution, like how do you expand? The only way that you could create something bigger is if it extends beyond the individual, beyond who you are as yourself.
Well, Kent, we covered so much today. As we wrap up, I want you to give us one final piece of advice, a piece of advice that you would give to your younger self.
So I always say that pressure makes diamonds. And when you are creating this operating system called the human being, and you're exploring all these different things in life, I truly believe that whatever you dive into is almost a stress test system into what makes you a comprehensive individual. So when I dive into Murals and having to think big picture, and trusting the process there, or when I think about martial arts and running and my fitness side and this idea of, we talk about pain, pain is really like thinking through final output, like what the ultimate outcome would be. All those things, and obviously business with systems and system building. All those things are, again, stress testing what you are capable of to become not just an individual on a single track path, but someone that can look at the world comprehensively and explore it in all its beautiful ways.
Well, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Yeah, thank you.